welcome to Art. Or if you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, welcome to Art on YouTube. We are absolutely everywhere. If you haven't been with us before, this is the first season that we're actually both on YouTube as video and on all the podcast apps. So wherever you're watching or listening, welcome to the Art Podcast. And I'm Chris Stafford, and I'm joined this week by Megan Seiter, who is a color pencil artist, currently living, well, has been living for quite a while, on the West Coast, near San Francisco, but originally from the East Coast, from Rhode Island, Megan. So you're an East Coast girl transported.
I am. Yeah.
And welcome to the Art Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Well, I discovered you on Instagram, like I do so many people. Often we have guests who nominate other artists to be on the show. But you're an original discovery from myself on Instagram, good old Instagram. And I caught sight of your work, and I was actually blown away. As a color pencil artist, we've had a previous guest on the show who was a color pencil artist, Paulette Pearson. Not quite the same subject matter as you, but I was fascinated by the detail and the extent of the detail that you have in your work for botany, particularly for botany. Takes a lot of patience, but it seems to me it's been a lifelong passion for you.
Yeah, I would say not specifically flowers and botanicals, but drawing for sure has been a lifelong passion. And I love getting into the details. It's really meditative for me. And I love the idea of somebody seeing a drawing, and the closer you get, the more that's revealed.
Yes.
That doesn't, often the closer you get to see the brush strokes and the kind of the hand of the artist, and which I also love. But just for my own work, I like to layer the colors and add in details that you maybe can't see from far away. And that's the juicy part of the work for me.
Get it right down to the macro detail. And does that mean that you're a very patient person and have that naturally, that attention to detail?
I think so. Yeah, generally.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
How does that apply to other parts of your life?
Oh, I mean, I do have moments of impatience for sure, much as like anyone. Yeah. But it does help, I'm a mom, and it helps, I was a server for a really long time, and just having a base level of calm and patience really helps when you're in the service industry and dealing with a whole variety of people. I would say that was a good translation of those skills.
Yes, I was talking to someone, another guest, about that, and they said that everyone should be a waitress, whether you become an artist, whatever you become, but you should at some point be a waitress, because it does teach you
so much
patience and to deal with so many different temperaments.
It absolutely does. Yeah, it's a really good way to learn about people and how to respond to different situations and that kind of thing. Yeah.
But the artwork, that started at a very young age. Your mother, Michelle, she's an artist, graphic designer, a calligrapher. She's someone probably that instilled this interest in art to you at a very early age.
Yeah, I was one of the few people I know that from the moment I can remember, I was going to be an artist. It was a really exciting thing for me. And my mom was a calligrapher, and then she developed carpal tunnel. So she sort of shifted to graphic design. And then she's always been in the art field. And she had all of these, because she was from California and we lived in Rhode Island. My dad was from Ohio. We didn't know a lot of people in the area. So she basically created a family for us of her friends that became my aunts and uncles. And they were illustrators and bookbinders and stonemasons. And I was just,
really?
It was a whole variety of different forms of art. And these people were, really close to me, and I got to see how things were made and just loved it. Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. Bookbinders, stonemasons, there are all different arts and crafts there that would give you a different insight into all that's possible, really, in art.
Yeah.
From very hands-on, getting your hands dirty, but you don't get your hands very dirty these days with your artwork, do you? Or do you do other things apart from colored pencil?
So no, not professionally, but I did recently, I decided to take a ceramics class, because when I was in college, I was trying to take every kind of class I possibly could. I majored in general fine arts so that I could not be sort of forced down a specific path of the type of classes. Like if you majored in painting, you would have to do all these specific classes. So I was taking ceramics and paint, watercolor, acrylic, and all these, and that's where I discovered colored pencil. But recently I thought it would be really fun to make a drawing from scratch. So I decided to take a ceramics class so that I could make my own vase and grow my own flower and then take the photo and then do the drawing based on the things I had created. So,
wow, that's really soup to nuts. Huh? That's the whole 9 yards. That's fascinating. So you enjoy working with your hands too?
I love it. Yeah, if I had 5 lifetimes, I think I would do a whole bunch of different forms of art because I love them all. I just kind of discovered colored pencil and fell into it and fell in love with it. But I like getting my hands dirty and using them in different ways, and it sort of uses a different part of your brain, and it's exciting to me. Yeah.
You mentioned that your dad, Matt, but you said he's also an artist. He's retired as your mum is now, and he was an accountant, but also very hands-on. He's very physical, applies himself very physically. And I'm wondering what you learned from him as well.
I think from him, I get the precision. He would not call himself an artist. He has a really artistic mind, and I've done pieces for him, and the way he frames them is very precise and thoughtful and beautiful. But he was an accountant, and then he decided to kind of switch careers, and then he has bought several houses and kind of redone them, but he took a staircase and it wasn't in the right place. So he moved the whole staircase like 3 inches to the left. That kind of precision and calculation going on in his mind. And it seems ridiculous, but what he did, it really works, and it helped with the flow of the house, and every little thing is considered. So I think that's where I get that from.
Yeah. You're in your studio now and you're having some refurbishment work done there. It sounds like a very large, nice space. So this is your go-to. Is it at home, or do you have to go to it?
It's at home. So our house is a 2-story house, but there's only one room on the bottom. So I've taken over the room as my studio, which is really nice because, I can be mom and then I can come downstairs, and I have a dog, and it lends a lot of flexibility. And it's nice to be able to get in, half an hour here or there. And when my son is in school, a big chunk of hours. And I really enjoy it.
That's Wyatt, who's now 7 years old.
He's 7, yeah.
Is he at all interested in what you're doing?
He is. Yeah. He likes being creative and he does like a lot of cut paper collage work. I would say he's a little more interested in my husband's profession, which is, he's a chef. So Wyatt loves to cook. And he kind of has a whole bunch of different interests, but he does come down and kind of see what I'm doing and make comments here and there.
Yeah. Let's go back to your childhood, Megan, to Rhode Island, where you were born and raised back in 1986, I think it was. Yeah. So is there any part of that you miss, being an East Coast girl?
All of it. Yeah.
Do you really?
I didn't mean to land in California. Honestly, I love the seasons. I was born in the fall, and there's just something that hits me the right way when there's a crisp day and the sky is so blue and the leaves are changing. It's just magical. And I like working through one season to get to the next. Like you really have to work through winter and it's cold and snowy to get to spring. And then the first little, pieces of grass start to pop through and the flowers come through. And here it's beautiful all the time, which is, you can't complain about it, but it's just, sometimes I walk out and for a second, I can't remember if it's winter or summer or, and again, I'm not to complain about it, but I do miss that. And Rhode Island is really small. And I just went back like 2 weeks ago to see some family, and you run into people, in the bookstore, and you run into, people you went to high school with, and it's a small community. And I've been in California for over 15 years. I don't know exactly how long, and my husband has that. He'll run into people because he's from this area, but I do miss those couple of things. But I came out here and then met my husband, and, the rest is history. So, and I'm happy to be here. I would say if there's some things I miss, it would be those two things.
I've been to Rhode Island, to Newport a couple of times for the sailing.
It's beautiful.
Is that something that's in your background with your family into
Not
sailing?
at all. Not even in the slightest. I did do, I was on a crew team in college and high school. So that was my sport.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. I went to a private high school that was very small. And so they required you to participate in 3 sports a year. And I'm the most unathletic person you probably will meet. I'm very tall. So they were excited to have me on the basketball team. And they just told me eventually, please just stand there with your hands in the air to block the ball because I didn't know what was going on. And I had my physics teacher came to me and he said, I think you would be perfect for crew, and I'm going to put together a crew team with a few other schools because we didn't have enough people. So he kind of introduced it to me, and then I went to Hobart and William Smith College before transferring to an art school, and yeah, I was on the crew team there, and I loved it. It's an incredible team sport where it's not just you; everyone has to work together. You all have to be in sync.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Yes, it's all pulled together. Yeah. How many were on the crew?
Good question. We did have to fight for our seats, so there was more than needed. I can't remember. I think we had 2 JV boats and 2 varsity boats, and then a few during the a few 4s here and there, a combination of girls. But honestly, I don't exactly remember.
Were you competitive?
Yes.
In that?
Yeah.
So it was something that came to you, even though you thought you were not athletic. It was obviously something that fitted. I guess I can say I'm athletic. I'm just contact sports, I would say, are not my. Okay. Maybe that's the difference. I'm not. How tall are you, Megan?
I'm just about 6 feet tall.
Are you?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy being tall? Because I think a lot of people wish they were taller.
Oh, I was so embarrassed. I was this tall when I was 12. And I remember thinking if I could just stay below 6 feet, that would be great because everyone was shorter. Nobody was catching up to me until high school, I would say. So, and I was painfully shy, and it's a hard combination to be very tall and very shy.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That must have made you very self-conscious. Is your brother Tom, is he tall too?
Yeah, he's the same height as me, but I think most of growing up, I was a little bit taller and I'm younger, and then he caught up in the end, but yeah.
But your parents, are they tall?
My dad is 6'3", and he comes from a family of 6, and all of his brothers are, 6'2", 6'3". My mom is not. She's maybe 5'6". Yeah. I get the genes from my dad, I would say.
And with that name, Seiter, you have German background.
Yeah.
Do you know how far back that goes? When the first immigrants came over, which generation was that?
I don't know. Yeah, I thought of that, and I should ask my parents because I don't really know much about the history of our family. I would be curious to find out.
Does it have any connection to you now? I mean, do you feel any connection to that side of your family or an interest in the genealogy? More an interest in not so much in digging back generations, but more in my granddad and his family, and my grandma who passed away just before I was born. So I don't know a ton about her and her family, just the people who are a little bit closer in generation to where I am, but I don't have a huge interest in the genealogy. I would be curious to know if somebody, had laid it out for me, but I've never thought to ask. So no opportunity to speak German in the family then? No, not at all. No. Yeah. Let's go back to growing up in Rhode Island. If it wasn't sailing, what were you doing as a child? I was drawing. I was always drawing. And it's funny because I did have access to all these different art disciplines, but it was always drawing for me, and this curiosity about how to make something look realistic. And I remember the little discoveries I made when I was little, probably before I was 10. And one of my mom's friends was an illustrator, and she came over and she gave me a little, 1-hour class or something like that. And she was drawing a girl's profile. And I remember, I think I was fairly young because I was still drawing the eye as if it were from the front, like in an almond shape. And she showed me from the side, she said, if you look at it, it's actually more of like a triangle almost. And that blew my mind. And so I started becoming interested in trying to see things as they are instead of how you think they should look, and that, yes. And then it just became this pursuit. But yeah, I was drawing, and we had a dog growing up, and, going for walks and hanging out with friends and doing all the normal kid things. And
Yeah.
So what age were you when you thought you had a talent for it then, or your parents thought you had a talent for it when you were a child?
If you talk to my mom, she will say she's embarrassed because she was like, I didn't know that you were interested and good at, I knew you were interested in art, but she was like, I didn't pick up on the fact that you were good at it until middle school, maybe. And I never made the presumption that I was good at it. I just knew I really liked it and I kept pursuing it. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So it wasn't a matter of feeling good at it. It was a matter of I couldn't take myself away from trying, drawing and experimenting and being curious about it.
And that left, right side brain thing, what you think it should look like. I know I had that when I was a child because I was into horses and always had a pony. And I always wanted to draw my pony.
Oh, yeah.
And I never could.
Oh, no.
Because I was always drawing what I think it should be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's hard not to. Yeah.
It's very hard not to, and with horses, it's all about their conformation. And there's no such thing as perfect conformation, but you think you know what that shape what it should look like, right?
Yeah.
It should look like a dog or a horse or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. And I'll tell you very briefly, it wasn't until fast forward until well into adulthood that a friend of mine who was artistic, she said, find a photo of a horse, turn it upside down and copy it.
That's the trick.
And for the first time in my life, when I turned it back upright, it looked like a horse.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
The right side and the left side of the brain, how they do weird things. But then, when you were in middle school, then you're thinking about what you might want to do in high school and college, and what you were naturally drawn to. No pun intended.
Portraits and figures. I always assumed that that's what I would do. And in high school, we discovered there was a place called, I think it's still around. It's called AS220 in Providence, and they would do figure drawing once a week. And so I would go with, my brother and some friends, and we'd do some figure drawing. And I was always in the art room in high school, but it was always about portraits and figures. And then when I went to college, I was so excited to study anatomy and really get into it. And then sort of never ended up doing, I discovered, I did do some portraits and figures while I was in college, but I kind of was thinking after college, how do you continue to do that? How do you get somebody to sit for you for hours on end? Mm-hmm. And sort of as I was contemplating that, discovered still life. And I was like, well, here you go. You just put some things and they'll sit for as long as you want them to. They do decompose if you choose something like fruit or flowers, but right. Yeah, I sort of shifted gear, but it was always, I love capturing somebody, like not just what they look like, but capturing them on paper to people that know them. And they'll say, oh yeah, that's that person. Is so special. Or like bodies are so beautiful and varied. And it's funny when people are clothed, you might not see the beauty in them. And then when they're doing like figure poses, I'm just like the curves and the way the light's hitting the body. And I loved it. Yeah.
Did this suit your sort of shy personality in a way then, Megan, when you were a child, that you could withdraw into your drawing?
I don't know that I ever felt that I was withdrawing. It was kind of more of like an after school or during school, if I had an art class or if I was allowed to be in the art room or after. It was more of like a passion, not really a way to withdraw. Yeah. Because I still had I was still friendly and had a group of friends. If somebody I wasn't familiar with would talk to me, or if I was embarrassed in class and I was so tall and there's no way to hide those kinds of things. But I never used it as a way to withdraw socially. It was just more of something I was incredibly excited about.
Yeah, that's interesting because some people do. And I've talked to artists who do, they'll go to their bedroom and it was a way of just being in their own space and not having to socialize. But that wasn't the case with you.
No, not so much. Yeah.
So what kind of a student were you then? Because you went to art college after high school.
Yeah. I was always, that sort of precision and level of perfection has always been with me. So I was like an A student and tried really hard and studied really hard. And then when it came time to decide where to go to college, it was funny because our guidance counselor left the year I was getting ready to go to college, and the sport director of our high school stepped in and wasn't quite used to the job. And he caught on to the fact that I was on a crew team and I was interested in crew. So he's like, well, why don't we find a school that has crew instead of, what I wanted to study. And I knew at that point, I didn't want to go to an art college. I wanted to go to a liberal arts college so that I could have a really didn't want to just be an artist and not know about anything else. I wanted to, know about other things and study philosophy or psychology or, whatever I might do. So I went to Hobart and William Smith and did crew there. And I was I was studying art there and realized I was just trying to take as many art classes as I possibly could. So I ended up transferring to MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art, so that I could just completely study art. I felt like I got my fix of those other classes. And then that's where I discovered colored pencil.
How influential were your parents in perhaps steering you towards a career pathway? Or did they
not at all.
Leave your mind alone?
Yeah, they just do what you want. I don't think they would have, if I didn't go to college, it would have been, they're very supportive and, kind of like, you take the path that you want to take. My brother took a year off after high school and traveled around Europe and then came back, and, they didn't try to influence me in any way, which was really great. But they've been supportive. Yeah.
Did you at that point think, well, maybe I could make a career out of this as an artist? How ambitious were you?
Yeah, I wondered if I could, because I was like, well, I'm studying art. Let's see if I can do it. And I did have a moment when I was transferring. I had been in college for 2 years, and I thought maybe I should become a pastry chef because I think the skills translate. They do some of the pastries that they make are art, and they're gorgeous and they're detailed, and I loved to bake and cook. And so it was a thought like that might be a smarter career. They might be actually a paved path for that. And then I thought, no, I'm just going to try it. So, so it was kind of a fleeting thought. And I do remember trying to take, there was not any business class that was offered at MICA, but they did have just like a one-time extra class on business and art. And I did know it's going to be really important to understand the business side of art, because otherwise, what are you going to do with these skills? Mm-hmm. And my mom had run her own business, and I saw how hard it was. And the class ended up getting canceled because there wasn't enough interest. So, so I learned about art, and then I learned, through trial and error about the business side, and just kept in mind how important it would be to have those skills.
And whilst you were in college, then were you considering how you would take those next steps? Because it's one thing to want to be an artist, but when we graduate, think, okay, you said you went waiting, you spent some time as a waitress, but how did you build the pathway from graduation to becoming an artist?
I don't think I knew quite what to do. I graduated, and my roommate from the first college I went to was from California. And she said, come move to California. And I thought, well, that's a good place for art. So I moved to California, and to
Northern California, to where you are now.
Yeah, to the Bay Area. I moved to Oakland, to West Oakland, which was not the same as it is now, but she had a place, and I had a friend, and I was applying to like framing shops, and I had worked at Utrecht through college, but I didn't want to kind of do that. And I thought drawing is so solitary. I had a little studio set up where we lived that I decided that being a waitress or a server would be a great counterbalance to the kind of solitude of being an artist. So I thought, okay, I'll do that to make money. And the way that I did it is I belonged to the Colored Pencil Society of America. I discovered them, and are you familiar with them?
I'm not, but did you discover them in college or?
No, after college. I don't know if I was just looking into how to make this career possible and resources. And I somehow discovered them and joined it. And they do an annual show every year. And so I joined, and I got into the show. And at that show was a Prismacolor representative. So I met it was a lot of like networking. I met the Prismacolor representative who I ended up being I forget what they called it, but they flew me out to Chicago to consult on their product. And I just made little connections here and there. And this was like 2009 or 10. So I had a business card, and I would hand that out, and then it would turn into things. And I was serving in Oakland, and one of the people that came into the restaurant was having an art opening. And it was Matt Gonzalez, who is now a really successful artist. He's very well known in the San Francisco area, not just for his art, but his politics and everything. And we made a connection. And through him, I ended up getting representation much later at a gallery in San Francisco. But the other really key thing was applying to competitions through like magazines, and anything I could find where there was a competition that would give you a little bit of exposure and get you published is like an incredible way to go about getting noticed by people. And then you're contacted by somebody that saw you in the magazine. So it kind of happened that way. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I would imagine that line of art would find it a home in illustrations in books too. Was that an opportunity for you?
No, to get my work into books, you mean? So actually in college, I was thinking portraits and figures, and then when I transferred to MICA, I thought I'm going to be an illustrator, and it's going to be great because how fun to be, put your art in books. And so I took an illustration class, and it was like the second class. They told us, okay, let's do the 3 little pigs and the big bad wolf. Please draw them. But we had no reference photos, and I had trained myself to be able to draw what I saw, and I couldn't think of like, does a pig have ears? What do the ears look like? And my drawing looked ridiculous. They didn't even look like the right animals. And I thought, okay, illustration is not for me. The other thing is the professor was really good at being really clear that when you're an illustrator and you're working with clients, you're going to have to make a lot of concessions for those clients and for what the clients want. And I didn't necessarily want that limitation. So I never went the direction of trying to get my work into books and do illustrations and that kind of thing, because I'm terrible at it. And I thought, the path of drawing and selling through galleries or selling directly would be better for me if I was able to do it.
We often have people, mentors along the way who have influenced us and certainly steered us towards a distinct pathway, which has ended up being a career. I'm wondering who those influences were for you in your early life. Like
after graduating or as a child, you mean?
Oh, yeah, I think through child, once we start to realize and pay attention that these people are actually mentors and people whose work you admire or the influence that they may have had on you as a young adult and then through college.
A few people come to mind. Daniel Masad is a pastel artist, and his work is absolutely gorgeous, really detailed. He does, he draws these really quiet, beautiful still lifes of pottery, but every detail, you can see every little crack and crevice in the pottery. And it's just stunning. And during college, I wrote to him because I was like, I was just getting into colored pencils and I was playing with pastel. And I said, how can you possibly get that level of detail with a piece of soft pastel, which is a chunky instrument? It's not like you can get it to a fine point. And so I hand wrote him a letter, and he hand wrote me back like 2 pages of telling me how he did. He uses Q-tips and kind of laying out how he did it. And I thought, what an amazing thing for him to have taken the time to write me back and tell me. So I tried his method, and I did make one drawing, using Q-tips and trying to get really detailed. And I ended up kind of going with colored pencils rather than pastels. But I continue to just admire his work and follow. I've listened to interviews, and I have a book of his work, and really loved. He wasn't necessarily a mentor; he was more of a source of inspiration. Matt Gonzalez, who I met, maybe a year after I moved here, was hugely influential. He is one of those super connectors where he's just the nicest person, and he knows everyone in San Francisco. And he says, okay, I know you will be a great match for this person. You guys should get together and have lunch. And he introduced me to some of his friends and collectors, and he would buy my pieces and support my work at a time when not a lot of people were doing that, because I had just started trying to make a career of it. And again, he later on introduced me to a woman who runs a gallery in San Francisco, and that gallery now represents me and has kind of helped my career along. And so he's been amazing to have as a contact in San Francisco when I didn't know a lot of people, and so supportive and so positive. And then my parents, of course, are just I know that a lot of artists don't have supportive parents who want them to choose that path. And my parents have they've only ever been supportive. So that's been really great.
How about grandparents? Were there any grandparents that you were particularly bonding with and being influenced by?
Not so much. I wasn't super close with my grandparents because they, lived in California and the other set lived in Ohio. Although my grandmother on my dad's side passed away just before I was born. So just my granddad. I mean, not that there's not a love and a connection there, but I wasn't around them enough to be influenced. And I don't think any of them were ever super inclined toward art. My grandma, who actually lives in Northern California, she does a lot of gardening and like sewing and stitch work and things like that, which is, but in terms of like the fine arts, I don't think there was, for any of my grandparents, a huge pull.
Being an art student, you would have studied art in the broader sense. I'm wondering which artists that we would know, more famous artists whose work you were drawn to at any time.
Yeah, Andrew Wyeth, I was really drawn to, of course. Yeah. And then, so I studied in Rome I did a semester in Rome, and it was amazing to be there and see like Caravaggio, the light that he was able to capture, and the famous Michelangelo, being there and being able to see things in person. And it was just incredible. All the sculpture, sculpture is almost more than the paintings, because if you see this block of rock and there's flesh carved out of it and the flesh looks soft, it's like somebody's fingers are pressing into, I can't remember the name of the piece, but there's one where a man is like holding up a woman and his fingers are pressing into her thighs and it just looks like flesh, but it's made of rock. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a study abroad program you did, as you said, in Rome. Was there at any point when you were out there thinking this is really going to influence what I do as an artist? And would you be looking for any opportunities in Europe? Was it somewhere that you might have been drawn to exploring your art even further?
I loved being there, and I was ready to come home because the program I did, I was the youngest. It was mostly juniors and seniors, and they let me kind of slip in as a sophomore. So I didn't really have a lot of people that I knew while I was there. And it was just this, again, mind-blowing experience to be around every corner. You can find some kind of art, and to be around the Italians and to speak Italian and to be immersed in the culture was amazing. But it was I was just glad to get home to, I don't know, friendship and family and people that I was familiar with. I know you can build that when you're in Europe, but I was like 19 when I was there. And I think I never really thought to stay there long term. Sorry if you can hear all the...
Well, I'm going to bring him into the show, actually, because he obviously wants to make an appearance, a cameo appearance, your dog. Yeah. Tell us about your dog.
This is my dog, Annie. She's coming down to ask me. She hasn't gone for her big long walk yet today, so that's her. That's
her letting you know.
Yeah, so I'm so sorry for the clicking.
That's okay. Is she your only dog?
She is. Yeah, we got her. She was a rescue. We got her, I think, 2.5 years ago, maybe. And yeah, she's great. She loves to run. She gets me out of the studio and into the outdoors and exercising, which is really good. She'll come and remind me to take a little break. So,
is that the one way to get you out of the studio? Then is to having to take. Are you someone that goes in there and you get your head down and you forget time?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, she will pull me out. I think otherwise I would just be in here. My body will remind me too, because I have, I think from being tall, back issues and things like that.
Right.
So I do kind of toggle between sitting and standing, and I try to take breaks when I can start to tell that things are seizing up or that kind of thing. But she will get me actually outside and with fresh air. And we have a beautiful park just right up the street where you can see this park. You can walk through the parks all the way to Oakland, through different parks, but you can see San Francisco from up there, and there's deer and coyotes and cows, and it's really beautiful. So it's a nice way to get out and then reset and come back and focus.
Apart from walking, Annie, what does exercise mean to you? Now?
Super important. Yeah, because I think when you spend so much time, I work vertically, and so my arm is up in the air, for hours on end. And so I think because I've had these issues, I swim maybe 4 mornings a week. So I'll drop my son off at school and then I'll go for a swim. And I do try to do stretches and exercises to kind of help counterbalance that position. And if I don't exercise, I I can really feel it. So it's become an important part of being able to continually work in the way that I do.
Yeah, stretching, I would imagine swimming, of course, particularly helpful.
Yeah.
Why, tell us, and we don't get into the technical aspects on this show, but I'm curious because you do work in an upright style. What is it about that? Even though your arm is raised in order to do that, and it's hard to sustain that, as you say, for extended periods.
Yeah.
Because someone thinking, well, drawing, you're going to have your head down and you're going to have the paper horizontal. What is the difference for you?
I think that having my head down, just physically, the strain on your neck to do that for hours and hours would almost be worse. This way, I have a homemade drawing table, and again, I'm tall, so I've made it huge so that I can either sit or stand, and I can adjust the paper on the drawing table. And also, I've found that, especially if you're working on a larger piece, if it's on a horizontal surface, your drawing can become a little bit distorted because you're not really looking at it straight on. You're looking at it from a different sort of perspective. And so having your drawing be vertical kind of helps to eliminate that issue.
It's like having an easel, really.
Yeah,
it's same as having an easel and seeing it on that plane. So when you get into the studio, what gets you into the vibe for the day? Is it music? Is it spoken word? What gets you going?
It's usually music. Sometimes I can listen to occasionally like a book on tape, or there's like one or two podcasts that I generally listen to. But it just depends on what I'm actually doing. If I'm really focused and I have to think about what I'm doing, it's going to be music and sort of some more mellow music. But if it's sometimes a lot of it, the base layers is just filling in areas of color carefully, and it doesn't take that much brain power. And so in that case, I can listen to a book on tape, or I can even put on a movie that I've seen a few times, that I don't need to watch it, but I enjoy listening to it. And yeah, if I'm not really hyper focused, I like music that's going to like pump me up and get me excited, and I can sing to it and I can get really into the.
Oh, really? Yeah. You can really connect with it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, we hear of artists that, they get into that space and they can't connect with anything else. It has to be very singular application. But you can, even though it's such detailed work, you can still be like physical and get, as you say, sing along to the music.
I love it. It really
not distracted.
It really helps me get into the zone I don't know. I love music and I love being happy and singing and, moving around a little bit when I don't have my pencil to the paper, like if I'm sharpening or, it just makes me happy. And I think the happier I am, the more like I know that sounds maybe counterintuitive, but yeah, no, I love to get.
It just really gets you in a very happy place, obviously.
Yeah. And it's not always like, sometimes we all have grumpy days, and then I come down and I'll put on a different vibe of music, and then I'll channel my grumpiness into the, not putting it into the piece, but I'll kind of more focus on what I'm physically doing to kind of get out of that mind space. But yeah, it's a great way to, whatever emotion you're having to draw, you can either let it go or lean into it. And you're so focused that, it just helps to regulate everything. It makes me feel really calm.
Do you not have a successful transition to your art? Then if you go in there in a grumpy mood, something's gone wrong, you just go in there not feeling, as well as you would mentally to transition. Do you ever have to turn around and walk away, or do you find a way to get into your groove?
I find a way. And I think that's the best thing I got out of art college. You don't have to go to college to become an artist. You might just be an artist and you didn't have to do that. But our classes were 6 hours long, and you had to do art, whether you felt like it or not. And I think that's the best thing I got is I realized like it might take 30 or 40 minutes to get into it, but you can always get into it if you just, not you generally, me, I could always get into it if I sat for long enough. And there were some days where I'd be like, there's no way I'm going to get into it. And then you do. And it lets, like if you have thoughts running through your mind and things are racing, it's really easy to just not easy, but like by focusing on something, you're not thinking about the thoughts, and then they kind of just go away, and then you just continue to focus, and then that's it. And it's, I don't know, it's really amazing in that way.
Transformative.
Yeah, I think so.
What has it taught you, art and being an artist?
That's a good question. It's taught me, that's a good question. It's very self-regulating. Is that a good way to say it? Like it,
Yes.
yeah. And it's taught me how to focus and how to be patient and how to work through frustration and how to embrace mistakes, because mistakes are such an important part of the process. And now that I'm teaching, I'm trying to communicate how important it was for me to kind of learn by trial and error and make a ton of mistakes and work through the frustration and then figure out the benefits of, okay, now I'll never do that again. And you get to the other side of it, and actually your work becomes better because of the mistakes that you made. So I would say those things.
What do you take out of that space at the end of the day when you're going back into your family life or other responsibilities as a wife and a parent? Is that, do you make sure that you leave the studio at a place where not only you're happy with your work, but you are very centered and you are ready to transition back? Is it a conscious thing, or is it, you look at your watch and you've got to go, and get Wyatt from school or something?
That's exactly that. It's time to go get Wyatt, or, got to go get dinner ready, or, I have to remember, Annie will often come down and remind me, as she just did, but I only have much time left. I need to go get Annie out because she needs a really good chunk of time to run, I know it would be nice if I could just finish the day whenever I feel ready. But sometimes there's days where I don't feel like drawing. And that happens to be the day where I know Wyatt is going to be with his, at school and then with his grandparents. And I actually have like 9 hours where I could work all day. And I get really excited for those days. But also if I wake up in the wrong mood, it's, oh no, and I got to kind of get into it. And then, I did say, it takes 30 or 40 minutes. Sometimes it's a fight all day to get into it. But for the most part, if I'm not in the right mindset, I can get into it fairly easily. But we're all human and we all have those days where just nothing goes right. And then I just sit through it anyway. And it does help me feel productive on a day where I probably wouldn't have been productive being self-employed. It teaches me discipline. Like, you got to just sit and work whether you want to or not, because this is a passion and this is a job, and it's I think it's good that I have that mentality of, no, just sit and do it, and you will work through it, and you'll discover something, or you'll make a mistake and you'll learn from the mistake. So I'm kind of okay with all of that happening. But I think because I'm doing something that I love for a career, at the end of the day, when I switch back into the mode of being a mom and a wife, and, I'm more fulfilled, and I'm just happy with what I do in general. So it's helpful.
You're obviously in a very good place now. You mentioned teaching, and you are teaching, but I'm wondering, and this is not for everybody, being an artist and a teacher, although many artists I talk to do teach, many don't. It's rather like commissions. Some take commissions, some don't.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what made you think that teaching was for you, and why you thought you would be good at it. Was it because you were a good art student yourself and understood the benefits of being an art student, that you could apply those kind of principles to teaching? And I'm just wondering how you found that was a lane that you could belong in.
It's new for me. I've only been doing it for a year, and I do it by producing online courses. So it's not like I'm teaching in person. And there were a good 5 years where I thought I should make some kind of course, because it came more from a desire of wanting to share what I've learned. Because when I started with Colored Pencil, there was the Colored Pencil Society of America. I think Colored Pencil magazine came out maybe around that time. But I think the mission of the Colored Pencil Society of America was to help people within the art community understand that colored pencil can be a fine art medium, and it's not something for children and necessarily, it is something that can produce incredible work, and kind of elevating the status of it. Because when you went into galleries in 2009 or 2005 or whatever it is, you saw oil paint and acrylic and maybe watercolor. You didn't see, there's not a whole lot of drawing, first of all, but then specifically colored pencil. And because of that, the course that I discovered colored pencil in, the professor didn't know anything about colored pencil. It was a color and composition course. And so she was versed in color in general and was helpful in terms of the principles of color. But when it came to navigating colored pencil and discovering, I had mostly worked in graphite and charcoal, and navigating a tool that was so similar to like a graphite pencil, but had wax in it was like, I didn't know that the wax could build up on the paper so much that you can't apply it. There were a lot of technical things that I had to learn by trial and error, and how important materials are. Like the paper can chip away. The top layers of the paper can like actually fall off if you add too many layers. And so I had these drawings where I was like, what is going on? And there were not a lot of people, there were actually no people to tell me this is how you do it. And so it was very much a matter of trial and error. And I feel like I learned so much by making so many mistakes. Not saying that I am the best colored pencil artist or anything, but I feel like there's not a whole lot of people who have spent this much time with this medium. And I just thought I really want to put this into a course for people that are now trying to discover colored pencil, and to just share with them what I've learned and the ways that you can speed up the process, or that you can make colors more vibrant, or, whatever it is. So it was just more this desire to like, I've accumulated all this knowledge from like 15 years of working with this medium, and I'd like to share it somehow.
Yeah. So is it mostly on, or 100% online courses? There's nothing in person?
Nothing in person, yeah. And it's, I will say I'm not a huge social media person, except for the fact that, running a business. And as you said, you found my work on Instagram, and I've found that it's a really great tool for business, but it also can connect you with people all over the world. So the students are like international, which is really fun to have people from all over the world. And I would love to do something in person, but because the work is so detailed and slow, I haven't figured out a way to do an in-person course that's not, 30 hours long or so, like to be able to share what I shared in this video course in person. I think I would have to formulate a different approach.
Where do you get your validation for your work?
I would say because, I applied to all those competitions that I was saying through magazines like International Artist Magazine and Colored Pencil Magazine. All of them have that. And it is really helpful. It is validating to see your work in a magazine, or like the Colored Pencil Society of America or American Women Artists. They have shows every year, and to be accepted into the show, to sell your work, I sell through galleries, and to know that I can create a piece and send it to the gallery, and they'll sell it, and somebody wants that in their home and is willing to, I think, and now that I've started teaching courses, it's so wonderful because, again, drawing is so solitary, but this teaching kind of connects you with all these people, and they're interested in this topic that's so specific, and not a whole lot of people are very interested in colored pencils. And it is validating to have conversations with them, and to see how excited they are, and to see what they're learning, and that they're grateful for, the lessons, all those things.
How important is the commercialization of your work? Would you do it if you didn't sell anything?
That's a good question. I mean, I would continue to do art. Obviously, I think I would have to have another job to make money. And it is there. You're right. There is a validation in being able to call it a career. Like I'm able to make enough money that I don't need a second job. And there is a lot of validation in that. But I know if I were doing another job, I would still have to come back to drawing. Because I've been making these courses, I haven't drawn now since September, and I am chomping at the bit, and I've been renovating my studio, and I'm just like, I cannot wait to get back to it. It's something I really miss. Yeah. So. And
in terms of the time that you're working, as you say, you're working there all day as a professional artist. What is fun time for you then? Apart from walking the dog and being a wife and a mother, is there another part of Megan Seiter that we should know about?
It's funny because I was just talking about this with somebody that when I was in my 20s, I was so fun. We used to go out dancing and we had a great time and we go to brunch and I had all these friends. And then you get married and you have kids and it sort of shifts. And so, no, it's having fun is my son has a best friend whose parents are so much fun and we love getting together. So just going to a museum with them or like doing little activities with the two families together. We're going to go, on a vacation together. We've gone camping together. That's really fun for me. But most of my life is consumed by being a mom and, having play dates for my son and taking Annie out and drawing. And I would say swimming is fun for me. Again, it helps me use my brain in a different way because I'm focusing on my body. And I wasn't a swimmer until the past couple of years. And I sort of taught my husband helped to teach me to swim. And then I looked on YouTube and now I feel like it's fun to move my body and think in a different way. And I'm there with my husband. And then we always sit in the hot tub for like 5 minutes before we go to work. And it's that's a fun way to spend time with him and start the day. But it really is, that's just right now as it is. And that's it. It's Wyatt and Annie and Johnny and my work. And I'm happy to have this. And I'm sure it'll change as life always does. But
what would your parents say about the artist you've become? How do they reflect on your childhood and how your career has evolved to be so successful as an artist?
They're super proud. They're super proud and supportive. If you go to my mom's house, it is covered in my art. She has art from when I was in high school, and she has prints of my work now, and they're all beautifully framed and highly on display. Same thing at my dad's house. And my dad actually, when I came out here and was trying to figure out how to make money, his wife said, how much are your student loans? What would you need to make? Figure out what that is, and then start a monthly subscription where you sell a piece for that month for that much money so that you can cover all your loans. And I took her up on that. And so for a few years, I did this subscription where, one person will have subscribed to a specific month, like October. And then every October they receive a drawing for that specific amount to cover my student loans. And that was really helpful. And so my dad subscribed to that. So he has some of those small drawings from when I was in that phase of my life. And no, they're so proud and supportive. And that is so helpful as an art, even as a grown woman, to have parents that are proud is really helpful.
Yeah. Are you a collector?
Not so much. No,
not so much.
Yeah.
Do you go to, you mentioned you went with friends maybe to a museum, but is this something that's important that you take Wyatt to appreciate art in museums and galleries? Or is he too young? Perhaps?
I would say maybe, later on. But I do talk to him. I do try to tell him, like, because he sees how hard I work and he knows the hours, like that I work a lot. Not that I don't, I make time for him when he's home from school, and that's my, I stop working. But I will tell him, I just finished. I've been working toward this show, and I just finished, and I think we should celebrate. So it's more about like the hard work and the accomplishment, and being able to celebrate the small things and the big things, and being proud of yourself. And it's less about the art and making sure he sees art and understands how important it is to me, because I don't know if it's going to be important to him. But later on, I'll definitely take him to museums. But he's been to my art openings and he's seen the art on the wall, and he's proud. And he's like 6 and 7 years old when this is happening. And he likes to be like, that's my mommy's art on the wall, and he had his friend come and showed her all around. And I think that aspect of it is more important right now than like taking him to museums and seeing. But I think later on, if he does take an interest, but again, I'm going to take the route my parents did, and whatever he wants to do, that's whatever makes him happy is just perfect.
That's absolutely fine. Well, you mentioned that you enjoyed baking, and of course your husband Johnny is a chef too. So I'm going to ask you that question about the dinner party.
Yes.
Which we always wrap up the show with that question of this imaginary dinner party. So you can invite 6 guests, either living or dead. Mm-hmm. Who would they be, Megan?
So I thought about this because I thought I should have some like really impactful answer, and it should be really interesting. But in thinking about that, like, what would I want out of a dinner party and what would make it memorable? Like, what am I needing right now is just like love and generosity and support from, I thought about both women and men and ended up landing on, I would have a dinner party of all women, and it would be women who are supportive of other women and filled with love. And so the first one that came to mind is my grandma, who I never met, but my middle name is her name, Jeanette. And I would be so curious to meet her. And you were asking about family lineage and, just hearing about who she is and where I came from a little bit. And I just have heard stories about what a kind woman she was and how special she was. And I would love to meet her. And the next person that came to mind is Isabel, who was my next door neighbor growing up, who has passed on. And I know this is, to people listening, this is maybe not the greatest content, but she was so full of love and compassion. And she was kind of like a surrogate grandma to me. And just her hugs were just the best. And just to have her there, just this presence of that would give me so much happiness to have her at the dinner party. And she was just what she was a nurse, and she did deliveries. She just was so full of love and giving. And then the next person was Pema Chodron. Are you familiar with her?
I'm not.
She's American born, but she became a Buddhist nun. And she, a few years ago, my son has had some health issues. And so trying to figure out how to deal with those myself, the stress of those things. I started listening to books. I'm not Buddhist or anything, but she is so comforting. And she's about, talks about compassion and being okay with things being rocky. And she was just so helpful in a time where it was really hard. And she just has, I listened to audiobooks, and the sound of her voice and the knowledge that she's, gained from being a Buddhist nun is just, I thought that would be a really interesting addition to the dinner party. Kristen Wiig for some levity because I just love her. And it's always fun to have somebody that has a sense of humor. And she's also had a really interesting, incredible life. And then the last one, I had like 5 different women in mind, but I landed on Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Yeah. And she does a podcast. It's called Wiser Than Me. Have you heard of that?
Okay.
And I
have, yes.
Yeah, she interviews women who have aged and just she talks to them about what they would advise her or a younger version of her. And I just think that older women that embrace being the age that they are, and like, I'm 39, all my friends are turning 40, and it's such a big deal and nobody wants it. And I think what a privilege to grow old. And I just want to embrace like that idea of the wrinkles on your face and the gray hairs that you get. It's not everybody gets to have that. It's such a privilege and it's beautiful. And so to talk to her, who has talked to all of these other women, and she also has an incredible sense of humor, it seems, and to have this group of women at the dinner party, I just thought would be amazing. That would be my choice.
Is that 6?
I think so.
That's all of them, is it?
I think so. Did I miss one?
No, I wasn't counting.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I was relying on your list. So as a chef, as a baker, what are you going to feed them?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I would have my husband feed them. I would have him prepare the dinner. I haven't cooked for like 15 years because he cooks everything. He cooks everything. Yeah. And he has this incredible passion. He can't help himself but to come home and cook. And that's his love language. And that's how he shows, so he would cook the dinner for sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But would you ask him for it, or would you let him decide on the menu?
I will say he makes escarole and beans, like a stew of escarole and beans with bread, with the garlic spread on top. That's just very homely and comforting and simple. And that's my very favorite thing. I always have him make it on my birthday.
Okay.
So I might have that because I've never met anyone that doesn't enjoy that. And it's simple and filling and nutritious and all the things that you would just warms your soul.
Would there be a dessert?
Yeah.
Would you do a dessert?
Oh, that's a good question. Gosh, my dessert of choice is always carrot cake, but I don't know for a dinner party that would translate very well. Or pumpkin pie, reminds me of the fall, but maybe something like a little, I would do a platter of for our wedding, instead of having a wedding cake, we did a whole platter of an assortment of like cookies and pies and small cakes and things like that. And I think that's very fun. So everyone can choose what they like, to have a whole assortment of pastries.
Wine? Are you drinkers? Would you serve wine?
Wine. Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Wine.
So okay.
Gosh, with estrel and beans.
I'm wondering, would it be red or white? Would it be white?
You know, not so. When I was serving, it was so important to know about wine, and I had to take wine classes, and it's not my field of interest. And I did learn a lot about wine, and I also learned that there are people that are very specific about which wine you can drink with which meals, and it really does. When you have the right wine with the right meal, it brings out the flavor. It's just incredible. But there are some people that just want to drink white or just want to drink red, and I don't know these women, many of these women personally, and I think I would just offer an assortment, and they can have what they want, because
exactly, they can choose their own. You mentioned the Buddhist nun. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, you said you're not Buddhist, but does spirituality important to you? Religion?
Not religion. I think spirituality piques my interest. I'm so curious. I don't think we could possibly know what comes before or after, being a human. And I've never talked publicly about it, because I think it's like people are tend to be highly opinionated, it's just a hot topic. But I think I am spiritual, and I'm curious, and I like to listen to lots of different views on the subject matter, and listen to people's firsthand experiences of, whatever whatever they've experienced spiritually. And I'm still exploring and discovering. I wouldn't say I'm any one specific thing, and I wouldn't say I'm religious, but I'm very curious.
You're very curious. You said you listen to audiobooks. Do you have a book on your nightstand? Are you a big reader?
No, not like a physical book. It's more just what I can listen to while I'm, working.
The audiobooks.
Yeah, at that point, I'm putting my son to bed, and I haven't seen my husband all day, and there's not really a whole lot of time to read in between. Maybe when we're retired. I do love to read. Yeah.
So finally, tell us where we can find your work. You said you have galleries that your work is shown at, obviously on Instagram. We put a link there, but tell us where people can find your work mostly.
So mostly at Dolby Chadwick Gallery, which is in San Francisco, and Meyer Gallery, which is in Santa Fe. Those are the two galleries that represent me. And I do other little, like I said, if American Women Artists is having a show, they're doing this 25 and 25 campaign where they're trying to, help elevate the work of women artists, and they're showing at a different museum every year for 25 years. So that's always at a different spot, within nationally, but somewhere around. But mostly those two galleries is where I sell, and you can find my work.
What are you looking forward to in 2026, Megan?
Just getting back to drawing. It's been a whole year of like producing and video editing and thinking in this different way. And I just can't wait to just draw some flowers, and, getting back to that and relaxing. And I have no deadlines for this year, and which means I can create whatever I want, and I can go big and bold, or I can do a bunch of tiny little small ones. And I'm just looking forward to doing whatever
you feel like.
I feel like, yeah.
That's a lovely feeling. Do you take commissions?
Rarely, but I do some occasionally. But again, it comes back to that illustration, kind of working with the client. And I've had, my work is always better when I just make something and then put it in the world, rather than trying to create something with somebody else's vision in mind. So, but I do. And I do try to make it what they want.
Well, I recommend everybody follows you on Instagram and gets a sense of your work and goes to the galleries too. And I just will ask you to remind everybody of your Instagram handle, because it isn't just Megan Seiter, it's something else, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's your handle on Instagram?
It's MS_fine art. MS like Megan Seiter. Yeah,
that's right. MS_fine art. Uh-huh. Perfect.
Yeah.
Megan, this has been fun getting to know you. And as I said, I'm a great fan of your work now. And I hope lots of other people that have been watching this video and listening to you on the podcast will also follow my example and be a new fan of your work.
Thank you so much. It was really fun to talk to you. I very much enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Megan. As I said, don't forget to go to social media. We're on Instagram at the AART Podcast, AART, or don't forget the 2 A's. And if you have any suggestions for guests, drop us a line to the AART Podcast at gmail.com. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another artist from around the world of visual arts. You never know who it's going to be because we have the whole catchment area of fine arts. So do join us again. But for now, my thanks again to my guest this week, Megan Seiter. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you. Take care.